They mocked her the moment she stepped out of the car. A cheap dress. A poor bride. Laughter echoing through a church that should have celebrated love. But what they didn't know is that the dress they laughed at, the one they called worthless, carried a secret older than any of them. A secret worth more than $5 million. This isn't a story about fashion. It's a story about betrayal, bloodlines, and the price of silence, because sometimes the ugliest things people say hide behind the most beautiful lies. Tonight, we're stepping into the wedding that became a crime scene, where a bride's humiliation turned into a revelation, and a simple ivory dress exposed a century of stolen love, greed, and ghosts. Welcome to Bride Mocked for Cheap Dress, until the groom revealed its $5 million value. But what he revealed wasn't just money. It was murder, legacy, and a curse sewn into silk. And once the truth began to unravel, the dress remembered everything. They said love conquers all. But on that warm summer afternoon, love was nowhere to be found. Only laughter, whispers, and the sharp sound of mockery echoing through the church hall. The guests had gathered for what should have been the happiest day of Emma Cole's life. But when she stepped out of the black car in front of St. Matthew's Chapel, heads turned, not in admiration, but in disbelief. Her wedding dress, instead of the glittering white silk everyone expected, was simple, the plain fabric, no jewels, no lace, a pale ivory tone that looked almost old. Some even swore it smelled like dust. One bridesmaid whispered, "Did she get that from a thrift store?" Another chuckled, "It looks like something from her grandmother's attic." And then came the phones. Dozens of flashes, TikToks, Instagram stories. Cheapest wedding ever started trending before the ceremony even began. Emma tried to smile, pretending not to notice. But behind her calm face, her heart was breaking. She could feel every judgmental stare piercing through her, because what they didn't know was that she had begged her fiancé, Ryan, to cancel the wedding altogether. 2 nights before the big day, Emma had confessed everything. She had lost her job. She couldn't afford the designer dress she had dreamed of since childhood. The only thing she could wear was a modest gown she'd found in an old vintage shop on the edge of town. It cost $50. $50 for the most important day of her life. Ryan had smiled softly and said, "Emma, I don't care about the dress. I care about you." But even his reassurance couldn't silence the voices in her mind, the ones that whispered she wasn't good enough, that she didn't belong in his world. Ryan came from wealth, old money, the kind that hides behind charm and smiles but judges every flaw in silence. And on that day, those judgments came alive. When Emma walked down the aisle, she heard giggles instead of music. Even Ryan's mother couldn't hide her smirk as she leaned toward another guest and whispered something that made them both laugh. Emma's father, holding her arm, felt her trembling. He whispered, "Keep your chin up, sweetheart. They don't know the truth." But Emma didn't know what truth he meant, at least not yet. The ceremony continued, but the air was thick with humiliation. When the priest asked if anyone objected, the silence that followed wasn't respectful, it was mocking. Everyone expected something to go wrong, and it almost did. As the couple exchanged vows, one of Ryan's college friends couldn't resist muttering loudly, "Guess he's saving all his money for the honeymoon!" Laughter rippled through the room. Emma froze, her eyes watering. Ryan's jaw clenched, but before she could break down, he squeezed her hand. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something fierce, something like vengeance. And then with the faintest smile he whispered, "Let them laugh. They'll learn soon enough." At that moment, nobody could have imagined what Ryan meant. Nobody could have predicted that the cheap dress everyone was mocking was actually worth $5 million, more valuable than the entire estate of the groom's family combined. But how? Why would a fortune hide behind such a plain, fragile piece of fabric? That secret would soon turn the wedding into one of the most shocking stories ever told, a story that would destroy reputations, reveal family betrayals, and uncover a mystery buried for almost a century. And when the truth finally came out, the same people who laughed would wish they had never attended that wedding. But what was so special about that dress? And why did Ryan know about its hidden value before anyone else? The answer lies in a story buried deep in history, a tragedy of love, greed, and bloodline secrets. The first crack in the laughter came minutes after the vows, when the photographer asked Emma to turn toward the old stained glass window for a softer light. The sun spilled through crimson and cobalt panes, washing her in colors like melted cathedral wax. For a heartbeat, the room went quiet. In that prism glow, the so-called cheap fabric changed. It wasn't merely ivory anymore. It deepened, pearled, almost alive, revealing a faint moire that shimmered like a lake under wind. Ryan's mother noticed. Her smile collapsed into a thin, surgical line. "Strange. Weave," she murmured. Strange was an understatement. As the guests drifted toward the reception, Ryan led Emma into the vestry, a small paneled room smelling of cedar and incense, where the chapel kept old hymnals and extra candles. He shut the door softly, his eyes electric with urgency. "There's something I need to show you," he said. "Something about the dress," Emma exhaled. "If this is about returning it for a refund, He shook his head. "No, about what it really is." He reached into his jacket pocket and unfolded an envelope, brittle with age. Inside there was a photograph, the kind that steals the warmth from faces and turns them into ghosts. A woman stood on a balcony, her shoulders squared, gaze cutting through the lens with aristocratic boredom. She wore this dress, the same plain lines, the same modest neckline. Only the photograph hinted at details the eye might miss, a peculiar cadence to the stitching, a rhythm to the seams, like musical notations sewn into cloth on the back of the photograph. 2 words in iron gall ink, "La déserte Emma," touched the picture as if it might bite. "Who is she?" Ryan swallowed. "Marguerite Verlaine. Paris, 1937. She was an heiress and a patron. Her collection vanished during the war." He paused. "My grandfather spent 40 years looking for it," Emma's mind snagged. "Your grandfather?" "He was an appraiser, the kind who authenticated what museums feared to touch. Stolen canvases, forgotten jewels, dresses." His smile was a shadow. "He died convinced that Marguerite's most valuable piece wasn't a painting, it was a gown." Emma stared down at the dress, hugging her body, and felt suddenly underdressed in the face of history. "Ryan, how would this end up in a thrift shop? Because that's where priceless things go when the wrong people need them to disappear." He slid the photograph away and lifted the hem with reverent fingers. Not much, just enough for Emma to feel the faintest ridge against the underside of the seam, a hidden path, a second spine inside the fabric. "Listen," he whispered, "not with your ears." He pressed the silk to her wrist. The cloth sang almost imperceptibly, a whisper of friction, like turning the page of an old book. "There's a filament woven into the warp. Not synthetic, not typical silk, it's something else," meaning Marguerite didn't commission a dress. His eyes flicked to the door, then back. "She commissioned a puzzle, a thud outside the vestry. Footsteps, hesitant, then gone." Emma's breath hitched. "Who else knows? Enough people to make today. Volatile." He tucked the envelope away. "But they don't know where the mechanism is." Mechanism. Ryan glanced at her left hip just under the seam that met the waistline. "My grandfather used to say, 'Great secrets hide where hands naturally rest.'" He traced the seam lightly. Emma felt a cool shiver as the stitching gave the slightest resistance, then softened, as if the dress were exhaling, not tearing, transforming. "Wait," she said. "Ryan, if this is worth anything, we shouldn't do this here. That's exactly why we must." He looked at her with an urgency threaded with fear. "Before someone else does it for us," he turned one tiny stitch, the kind you'd never notice unless you loved fabric the way a watchmaker loves cogs, and the seam clicked. Clicked. Emma heard it. Soft, mechanical. Impossible! The laughter from the reception drifted through the door, brittle, normal, human. Inside the vestry, the air changed. The dress loosened, then tightened in new places, aligning itself along lines Emma hadn't felt before. The plain weave parted to reveal an underlay, so fine it looked like hoarfrost, a field of microscopic chevrons patterned not in thread, but in something metallic, so thin it flexed like breath on that frost metal underlay. A signature emerged in negative, only visible in the angle of the stained light sweeping in through the side window. Lenoir. Emma frowned. "Who's Lenoir?" Ryan's jaw set. "The ghost of Paris couture. The tailor museums argue never existed, and the forger thieves swear they met in dark rooms." He pointed to the signature. "This is the first definitive mark anyone has seen. If it's real, this isn't just couture. It's a cipher, a soft scrape at the keyhole." Emma's eyes snapped to the door. Did you hear that?" Ryan slipped his body between her and the entrance. The scrape died. Silence, incense, distant clatter of cutlery. He exhaled slowly. We're running out of safe minutes. He turned her gently toward the window so the light fell across the underlay again. Letters swam up in the sheen, arranged like constellations, an alphabet of angles and glints, not embroidery, not print, a map of highlights, reliant on light itself to read. Ryan spoke low, as if reading a spell. Lenoir used optical weaving, filaments with different refractive indices. You tilt, the message appears. Tilt again, it vanishes. Impossible to copy without the loom and the code. The code to what? Emma asked. To everything Marguerite hid. Accounts, claims, artworks declared lost, names. He swallowed. And proof of a marriage her family denied. Emma's stomach dropped. A marriage? To a man named Auguste Hart, a Jew, a watchmaker. Ryan's voice softened. They called their union La Déserte, the desertion, because she left her family for him weeks before the occupation. The rumors said her family disowned her, then paid to erase her. Later the collaborators took the rest. He hesitated, except Marguerite had time to hide one thing, something she could carry. Emma stared at the shifting script, the way meaning appeared and receded like a shoreline. If all this is true, why bring the dress here? Why not tell me before? Because if I told you, you'd have thrown it away. He gave her a crooked, apologetic smile. You would never have walked past their laughter. You needed to wear their mistake into the room. A breathless beat passed. The insult of the ceremony felt distant, tiny, irrelevant. Emma touched the underlay again, feeling the cold thread like moonlight. How much is it worth? Ryan held her gaze. Conservatively, $5 million for the attribution and the code alone. A pause. But the value isn't just money, it's power. The door opened a fraction, wood whispering against stone. Ryan moved like a fuse, crossing the room and shutting it with a force just shy of a slam. He turned the latch. For a moment Emma saw the man beneath the groom, the strategist, the secret that made his politeness feel like a sheath. He returned, calmer. We can reveal enough to silence them, but not so much we lose everything. 10 minutes. Then we walk out, and I tell them what they mocked. Emma blinked. What exactly will you tell them? That they filmed their own humiliation. A dry smile. And that the only thing cheaper than their taste is their leverage. He lifted the hem again, careful, precise. There's one more thing. His fingers found the lining at the heart of the bodice, where a bride's pulse would drum. Lenoir was superstitious. He believed that every masterpiece required a sacrifice, or a key. Emma felt it before she saw it. A tiny hardness sewn into the lining, no bigger than a lentil. Ryan produced a small gold-toned needle from his pocket, a seam ripper his grandfather had carried like a talisman. He slipped it beneath a single thread, lifted and paused. Do you trust me? Emma nodded. He teased the thread free. Something fell into his palm, a watch crown, knurled with a microscopic engraving of intertwined letters, V and H, the serif bars, like two hands locking. He rolled it between his fingers, then pressed it, and a pin-shot of light flashed from a lens hidden inside the crown. Brief, concentrated, aimed at the underlay. The letters on the dress snapped into focus. No longer constellations, but sentences, coordinates, dates, 4 names, and a symbol she recognized even though she wished she didn't. The crest of the estate behind the Groom's family, 2 hounds rampant, a laurel and a motto about honor that had never survived their dining room. Emma looked up, breath caught. Why is your family crest on Marguerite's map? Ryan didn't answer immediately. The rage in his eyes wasn't for her. It was for blood that had bought silence. He closed his fingers around the watch crown, voice steady as a blade laid on velvet. Because the dress isn't just a cipher, he said. It's evidence of what my family took and who helped them. A thin crack raced through Emma's world, dividing it cleanly in two. The day she thought she was marrying into, and the truth she had just put on like skin from outside. A cheer rose, the sound of toasts beginning, of glasses lifted to illusions. Ryan slipped the watch crown into a small inner pocket of his vest. We reveal the price, he said, not the map. Not yet. Emma looked at the dress, the plain miracle, and understood the terrible, exquisite calculus of it. Let them think in money. Let them choke on numbers. And while they coughed, the message stitched in light would wait. She took his hand. Then let's go ruin their laughter. As they turned toward the door, the latch shivered, this time from the other side, and a voice spoke soft as dust slipping between pages. "Open up, Ryan. We should talk." About family heirlooms, Emma knew that voice. So did he. The groom's mother. Her silhouette pooled under the door like spilled ink. The secret of the ivory dress had woken the house that hid it, and now the house wanted. The reception hall glowed with the soft, false warmth of chandeliers. The kind of light that makes even venom look golden. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter returned, shallow and rehearsed. A pianist played something cheerful enough to drown suspicion. No one noticed that the bride and groom had been gone too long. Except her. Mrs. Eleanor Hart, Ryan's mother, stood near the head table, her posture a sculpture of etiquette and quiet control. Every motion was deliberate, rehearsed. She wasn't just a guest. She was the director of this performance, and her favorite act was humiliation. When Ryan and Emma finally re-entered the hall, the murmurs rippled instantly. The guests turned. The dress, now subtly rearranged by light and shadow, it no longer looked cheap. It shimmered faintly under the chandeliers, but not like silk. Like something older, colder. Like memory itself had been spun into the thread. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. She knew that glow. "Finally," she said, her voice carrying the kind of charm that bruises. "You had us worried, darling. The bride and groom disappearing on their own wedding day. How mysterious." Ryan smiled politely, but his eyes gave nothing. "We had something to discuss. Family matters." "Ah," she said, tilting her head. "Family. How appropriate." The pianist faltered on a note, barely noticeable, but it echoed like a warning. Eleanor raised her glass. "Well then, let's not waste a celebration. A toast, everyone, to family, and to secrets staying exactly where they belong." The guests laughed. Ryan didn't. Emma could feel the weight behind those words. Eleanor wasn't just performing. She was threatening. The moment Ryan placed his arm around Emma's waist, she could feel his pulse thundering. She whispered through her smile. "She knows." Ryan nodded slightly. "She's known for years." Eleanor tapped her glass again, commanding silence. "Now, before the dancing begins, I'd like to share a little story about legacy and choices. It's a family tradition." The room quieted. Even the chandeliers seemed to hold their breath. "Once," Eleanor began, "there was a woman who thought she could outsmart history. She ran away with something that didn't belong to her. She thought love justified theft. But love, my dear guests, doesn't erase bloodlines." Her eyes locked on Emma. The smile never left her face. Ryan's hand tightened. Emma could feel the tension between them, a wire pulled too tight. Eleanor continued. "Years later, that woman's mistake resurfaced, hidden in plain sight, passed down like a curse." She sipped her champagne. "And tonight it decided to wear white." A soft gasp from one of the guests. Another whispered, "Is she talking about—" Ryan stepped forward. "Mother," he said softly, "I think you've had enough of your own wine." Eleanor laughed, low and sharp.
"Oh, darling."
"You've always mistaken truth for intoxication." Emma's throat burned. She wanted to scream, to tear off the dress, to disappear, but something stopped her. The light. The same stained glass glow from earlier was now reflected off the champagne tower. The metallic weave in the fabric caught it, refracting patterns that rippled faintly across the tablecloth. Ryan saw it too. His eyes widened. The underlay was reacting again. But this time, the message wasn't static. The letters moved. She looked down. Words pulsed faintly along the hemline, visible only to her and Ryan. "Trust no blood. The heir betrayed the bride." Ryan froze. "She knows about the code." Eleanor's smile grew cruel. "You should have left the past buried, Ryan. My father, your grandfather, made certain deals so you could live the life you do. But you just couldn't resist digging, could you?" "Deals?" Emma whispered. Eleanor turned her gaze on her. "Oh, he didn't tell you? That lovely appraiser grandfather of his, the one who searched for Marguerite's dress, didn't find it." She leaned forward, voice like silk wrapped around a knife. "He stole it." The room fell silent. Only the piano's last note lingered, trembling in the air. Ryan stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "You're lying," Eleanor laughed softly. "Am I? You think the Valenne fortune just vanished? Someone had to take it. Someone clever enough to forge a signature, to hide a cipher inside a wedding gown, and sell the story as a myth." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "So, your grandfather," Eleanor cut in, "did what was necessary, as did I. That dress should have never left this family, and now it's back. Exactly where it belongs." A crash interrupted her words, one of the champagne flutes falling to the floor. Everyone turned, startled, but Emma didn't move, because the light had shifted again, and this time, it wasn't just letters, it was an image, projected faintly onto the floor by the metallic fibers of the gown. A spectral scene unfolded. A woman, Marguerite Valenne herself, standing beside a man in uniform, holding hands beneath a carved family crest. Not the heart crest, a different one. Eleanor's glass slipped from her fingers. Her face went pale. "No," Ryan stared. "She encoded her wedding photograph into the fabric." The guests murmured, confused, whispering. Phones began to rise. Recording. Ryan turned toward the crowd, voice steady, resonant. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "you've all had quite a lot to say about my bride's dress today. You mocked what you didn't understand, so let me enlighten you." He stepped forward, letting the projection ripple across the hall. "This dress is not cheap. It's not thrifted. It's an artifact worth over $5 million. Designed by the Los Couturier Auguste Lenoir for Marguerite Valenne, a woman murdered for love and betrayed by the same bloodline that sits among us tonight." Gasps, murmurs, cameras. Eleanor stumbled backward. "Stop this. You don't know what you're saying." Ryan met her eyes. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm saying." He looked at the crowd again. "My family's fortune came from theft, from lies buried under silk and lace. But not anymore." He reached for Emma's hand. "Tonight the truth walks free, in this dress." Eleanor's face twisted into something ancient and ugly. "You think the truth will save you?" she hissed. "You've just declared war on your own name." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Good. Then let history finally bleed." The guests were frozen, caught between scandal and awe. Some whispered fake, others art, but the cameras kept flashing, and as the flashes struck the metallic fabric, Emma saw something terrifying, the projection changing again, flickering into symbols neither of them had seen before. Coordinates, dates, a final word pulsing like a heartbeat. "Buried." Ryan's eyes widened. "It's still revealing data. There's more hidden in it, more than just art." Eleanor's smile returned, faint and cruel. "Yes, my darling," she said softly. "And if you keep digging, you'll find exactly what killed her. What lies beneath the coordinates? What did Marguerite bury before she died? And who else will kill to keep it hidden?" Rain began before dawn, the kind that doesn't fall, but weeps, soaking the world in a gray whisper. The laughter, the toasts, the music, all of it was gone. The only thing that remained from the wedding was the echo of a secret, an address that refused to stop speaking. Ryan drove in silence. The wipers scraped rhythmically, smearing reflections of streetlights across the windshield like slow-moving ghosts. Emma sat beside him, her hair damp, the ivory gown hidden under his coat. The fabric still shimmered faintly, alive even in darkness. On the seat between them, Ryan's phone displayed the last coordinates the dress had revealed, a series of numbers that ended with a place neither of them had expected. 46.809N. 4.402W. The location, Heart Estate. Emma's voice broke the silence. "It's your family's land." Ryan nodded slowly. "The oldest part. No one goes there now," she frowned. "Why?" Because my grandfather had it sealed in 1972, he said quietly. Said it was unstable. Claimed the ground had shifted. He paused. "But I think he was hiding what's underneath." They reached the gates just before midnight. The mansion loomed at the top of the hill, a shadow sculpted in moonlight, its windows blind, its gardens wild and unkept. The Harts had once thrown parties here that drew politicians and actors. Now, it was a mausoleum wearing the skin of a home. The rain had stopped. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Ryan stepped out first, flashlight in hand. Emma followed, her heels sinking into the wet soil. She could feel the gown clinging to her legs like it wanted to stay close, like it knew they were near its origin. They followed the coordinates down the side path, through the orchard, past the crumbling greenhouse. The flashlight flickered across statues eroded beyond recognition, marble eyes that had watched generations of deceit. Then the ground changed. from soft soil to something harder. Stone. A slab. Ryan crouched. This is it. Emma joined him. Moss covered the edges, hiding a carved inscription. She brushed it away with trembling fingers. The letters revealed themselves in fragments. M.V.H. 1941. Emma froze. Marguerite Valenne Hart. Ryan's breath caught. She married into my family. And then it all made sense. The obsession, the stolen dress, the shame buried under generations of wealth. His family hadn't stolen her gown. They had silenced her. Ryan found an iron handle hidden near the edge of the stone. He pulled. The slab groaned open, revealing a narrow staircase leading underground. The air that rose from below smelled of dust, copper, and forgotten things. "Stay behind me," he said. They descended. Each step creaked like the bones of the house itself were protesting. The beam of the flashlight trembled against stone walls, revealing faded frescoes, scenes of weddings, rituals, and at the center of it all, a woman in ivory. Emma recognized her instantly. Marguerite Valenne. Eternal, defiant, weeping silver tears. At the bottom of the staircase they found a door. Oak, reinforced with rusted iron bands. On its surface faint lettering shimmered in the flashlight's beam, not painted, but woven into the grain. The bride who betrayed blood will speak when the thief returns. Ryan touched the handle. It's some kind of lock. He reached into his vest and took out the tiny watch crown. The same one that had unlocked the hidden message in the dress. It fit perfectly into a small socket in the wood. When he turned it, the door sighed. The mechanism clicked. And then it opened. The room beyond was small. A stone chamber lined with wooden crates and stacks of old documents eaten by mold. In the center stood a pedestal. On it, a glass case. Inside the case, a single wedding veil, yellowed with age. Beneath the fabric lay a sealed letter, tied with black ribbon. Ryan's flashlight trembled in his hand. "It's hers," Emma whispered. "Marguerite's final message." They approached slowly. The glass was clouded, but inside they could see something etched faintly into the veil's edge. Symbols like those in the dress, but denser, angrier. Emma leaned closer. The symbols began to react to the light again, faintly glowing, forming words. Truth must rest where love was taken. Ryan lifted the case carefully, setting it aside. He opened the letter. The handwriting was elegant but urgent. The ink blotted as if written in fear. "To the one who bears my name, they will say I betrayed them. They will call me thief, lover, liar. But it was they who took what cannot be returned. Life for gold, silence for blood. I buried the proof here with my vows. The art, the gold, the names, and they are beneath this chamber, sealed in ash. But the real inheritance is not what they took. It's the curse that follows whoever wears my dress. For the fabric remembers, and it will always find its way home." Emma's eyes widened. "A curse?" Ryan shook his head, refusing to believe it. "No, just a warning." But the air around them began to hum, faintly, almost musical. The dress on Emma's body moved, though she hadn't touched it. The fabric tightened, threads shimmering in the beam of the flashlight like veins coming alive, and then, faintly, from somewhere beneath the stone floor, a sound. A slow, rhythmic tapping. Emma froze. "Ryan!" He turned toward the sound. "It's probably—" The tapping became louder. Then faster. The floor beneath the pedestal began to crack. "Get back!" he shouted. The stone split open. A wave of cold air burst from below, carrying the stench of iron and rot. From the darkness beneath, something metallic gleamed. A chest, half buried, its lock glowing faintly with the same pattern as the threads in Emma's dress. Ryan crouched near it, mesmerized. "This is it!" "The lost vault." He reached for the latch. Emma tried to stop him. "Ryan, wait. Too late." The moment he touched it, the lock pulsed once, and a faint burn seared across his palm. The same sigil appeared in the dress's weave, flaring for an instant like lightning trapped in silk. Ryan gasped, falling back. The sigil faded, but not completely. It left a mark like a brand. Emma grabbed his hand, trembling. "What just happened?" Ryan stared at the faint glow on his skin. I just inherited the curse." The rain outside turned violent, thrashing against the mansion's windows. The flashlight flickered once, then died, and in that darkness, the dress whispered, a sound like fabric sighing, like history breathing again. The whisper carried words neither of them had ever heard before. In French, delicate, mournful, "The thief must wed the dead." Emma froze. What did it say? Ryan looked at her, eyes wide. It said the curse isn't done yet, and beneath them the ground trembled, faintly, but enough for the veil on the pedestal to lift and drift in the air, as if caught by invisible hands. It landed softly at Emma's feet. The same words from the letter glowed faintly on its edge. Truth must rest where love was taken. But what did Marguerite mean by love was taken? And who was truly the thief? Ryan's family or someone far older? In the next chapter, the storm breaks, the dead return, and the final revelation beneath the estate changes everything. The storm reached its crescendo. Lightning carved white veins across the sky, briefly illuminating the manor like a corpse coming back to life. Each flash revealed the cracks in the walls, the dust trembling on beams, the ghosts painted into portraits that had been watching for too long. Emma stood frozen at the bottom of the staircase, the lifted veil now pooled around her shoes. The fabric felt colder than it should, as if it had been waiting for skin. Ryan crouched beside the broken chest, hands still marked with the sigil that had burned him. The glow had dimmed but hadn't disappeared. He whispered, "It's responding to the storm." "No," Emma said softly. "It's responding to her." The air shifted. The smell of the sea, sharp and metallic, rolled through the open vault. Then faint footsteps echoed from the hall above them. Slow, measured, deliberate. The sound of someone who already knew what waited below. Eleanor. Ryan looked up the stairs. "Mother!" Her silhouette appeared in the doorway, lit in pulses by lightning. The years fell from her voice as she descended. "I told you not to come here." "You knew," he said. "You knew she was buried here." "I knew we sealed a shame that would never sleep," she replied. Her eyes flicked to Emma. "And you brought it back." The floor shuddered again. Dust fell from the ceiling like gray snow. Somewhere below, the sound of stone grinding against stone. Emma's voice trembled. "Mrs. Hart, what really happened to Marguerite?" Eleanor reached the final step, her hand hovering near the wall for balance. For the first time, her composure cracked. "She was never supposed to marry my grandfather. He loved her, but she carried a secret. Those coordinates, that cipher. The Nazis wanted it. The family wanted it. When she refused to trade it for safety, they called her a traitor." Her voice thinned. "They killed her in this house." The dress seemed to tighten around Emma's ribs, every thread listening. "And you just kept the story hidden?" Eleanor nodded. "Oh, we turned her love into legend. We called it theft because the truth would have destroyed us." She looked at Ryan. "You were never meant to see this place. That dress was meant to die with her." A sharp gust blew through the chamber. Candles that had never been lit flickered into life, each wick igniting with a hiss of blue flame. In their glow, Marguerite's fresco on the wall moved. The painted bride opened her eyes. Emma stumbled back. The air pressed against her chest. The fresco's colors pulsed, bleeding into the stone. A voice, soft, layered, ancient, filled the chamber. The vow was broken. "The thief wears my ring." Ryan's branded hand burned brighter. The mark on his palm began to twist, its lines forming a new symbol. Two rings interlocked, bleeding light. Eleanor cried out. "She's awake, Ryan. The curse binds to blood. You have to destroy the dress." Emma shook her head violently. "No!" "She's not cursing him. She's warning us." The fresco's voice grew louder, echoing through the stone. Truth must rest where love was taken. The vow was not finished. Ryan's gaze darted to the cracked chest. Inside, among the scattered papers and gold fragments, something shimmered. A ring. Old, tarnished, but carved with the same intertwined initials that glowed on his skin. V and H. He reached for it, and the storm outside roared in answer. The entire chamber trembled. Emma grabbed his wrist. "Ryan, if you put that on, I think that's the only way to end it," he said. He slipped the ring onto his finger. Instantly, the glow on his palm spread through his veins like fire. The mark flared, and the threads of Emma's dress came alive. The gown's underlay lit up in a lattice of silver, the cipher moving faster, rewriting itself. Letters poured across the fabric like running water, forming one final phrase. "Return what was promised." Ryan's breath hitched. "She wants the vow completed." He turned toward Emma. The realization between them was silent, electric. The original vow, Marguerite's, had been made in secret, in this very room, never sanctified, never sealed. The curse wasn't punishment. It was an unfinished promise, waiting for witnesses. Eleanor sank to her knees, whispering prayers. The fresco bride's eyes shone with tears of light, and the air smelled faintly of roses and rust. Ryan took Emma's hands. "We speak the vow, maybe she can rest," Emma nodded. Together, they spoke words that weren't their own, guided by the pulse in the fabric. "In love that outlasts names, in truth that no blood can bury, we return what was taken, and release what was bound." The ring blazed white. The chamber filled with wind. The fresco shattered into 1,000 shards of light that rose like fireflies, spiraling around them before fading upward through the cracks in the ceiling. For a moment everything went still. No rain, no thunder, just the faint sound of a sigh. Grateful. Final. The glow vanished from Ryan's skin. The dress returned to its quiet ivory. Calm at last, Eleanor wept softly. "She's gone." Ryan turned to her, voice hollow. "No, she's free." They climbed the stairs in silence, emerging into the dawn. The mansion looked smaller in the pale light, as if relieved of its burden. The storm had passed. The air smelled of earth and ash. At the gate, Emma looked down at the gown one last time. The fabric was dull now, ordinary, as if the magic had burned itself out. She folded it carefully, placing it in the car's trunk. Ryan asked, "What will you do with it?" She smiled faintly. "Not sell it, not hide it, just let it rest," he nodded. "Then maybe we can too." As they drove away, the camera of a passing tourist caught a single photo of the old estate. In one window, for the briefest moment, a woman in an ivory dress stood watching them leave, her veil stirring gently in a wind that no longer existed. They called her a thief. She became a legend, and the truth she left behind still gleams under layers of dust, waiting for the next fool who mistakes history for inheritance.